everyone, Glenn Sanford here, founder of eXp Realty and also the host of the eXpansion podcast, where we talk about personal and professional development here at eXp Realty. Today, I'm really excited to talk to Jaine Whitfield for two reasons. One, Jaine's knocked it out of the park as an icon agent in the UK, but two, this is the first international podcast of the eXpansion podcast. And so we're going to start to interview a number of agents around the world and learn about what's working in their market. How did they get in the business? All the normal things that you would expect to learn about, and hopefully with it, because we're talking to agents all around the world, you'll be able to actually pick up tips and ideas that you can bring to your local market to actually implement and try out to see if that might not work as we talk to agents around the world. So, Jaine, welcome to the eXpansion podcast. Maybe you can just give a little bit of your background. How'd you get in real estate? How long you've been in the business? And then ultimately, how did you make your way to EXP?
Okay, so I first came into a estate agency about 37 years ago. It was a little bit of an accident. I just happened to be just looking for my first sort of proper job as such, and just stumbled into it and absolutely love it. I mean, obviously, people facing side of it was great for me, but also working in the Georgian city of Bath, I got totally hooked in on the architecture and everything in that area. So I've been in either estate agency as such or in new build sales for those 37 years, part-time, sometimes full-time, sometimes working around my kids as well. And I kind of came across EXP again. I kind of stumbled across it. So I was all set up, ready to potentially launch my own business in the January after COVID shut down, the first big lockdown that we had. And I'd been in touch with a lot of my friends and said, look, I'm thinking of doing this and bouncing ideas off them. And one of our agents, Scott Gunn, one of the early adopters, had emailed one of my friends at her job, just cold email, sort of like checking in, seeing if they might be interested in finding out more. And Nicola sent it on to me. And then the rest is history, really.
Now, what is so for those who are listening that may not be from the UK, I know that the industry, generally speaking, is set up differently. They're generally called employed agents versus self-employed. How has that journey been? Have you been generally on the employed side, and what does that look like? Like, what's the compensation structure typically look like?
So typically everybody is employed. So you'd have a bigger company, they set up, they have a manager, they have employees within the branch, the estate agency business, and they're usually paid a basic salary, which in UK pounds is probably around about 20 to 25,000. And then they might be compensated with commission on sales, depending on their level within the business, of maybe anything from 1% up to 5%. Some of the managers might get a little bit more. It varies across the country, but on target earnings are rarely above sort of 30, 35 for a sort of like, key valuer or somebody in the business. And not everybody values the houses. Not everybody does the viewings on the houses. It's very disjointed in that, you'll deal with one person at the beginning, then the person that comes and sits on the sofa and has a chat to you about using the service is probably the person, isn't the same person that would do the viewings, isn't the same person who would do the negotiating. So for the UK, it's very unusual. As it turns out, in the world is a lot more about being self-employed and being regulated. In the UK, we're not regulated, which is something that I very much support them changing. And we're very much all employed. So to take a step out and be self-employed is like setting up a whole new business for most agents. So it's a big step, and with a lot of expense.
Right. Now, what was you as an employed agent, if you don't mind me asking, and certainly, push back if you don't like these questions. But one of the things that we want to recognize is the difference in terms of potential earnings between employed versus self-employed. So,
Mm.
if you were to look at an employed agent, what was your best year, like in terms of take home, and maybe it's just a range, but what did you earn in your best year as an employed agent?
As an employed estate agent in an office, the most recent job was in my hometown where I am now and where I work now. And I think probably the best year was about £30,000.
Okay,
I went into new build. New build is a bit more lucrative, but it's very antisocial. You're working every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And the best I probably did in there was about 60,000, and that was exceptional for that year particularly. So that would normally be where you were with employed.
okay. And then how many properties did you sell like that last year?
So as an employed agent or sort of in
As
my
an
own
employed
business now?
agent, yeah, to
So,
to, to earn
uh,
30,000.
oh gosh, I mean, the branches as a whole, I mean, quite often you're paid on a branch commission. So the whole agency, like whatever that income is for that year, or per month on month, you'd get a percentage of that, like an office-based commission, rather than being an individual agent. They all have different setups. This is the thing. I always worked in a company where I got paid regardless of who picked the phone up or who did the viewing or whose that client was. It was all just, everybody helps each other out and everybody gets stuck in. That company, when I left that business, I was the sales manager, and I was only about, it sounds pathetic now, 30,000. We probably did a turnover of around 300,000 that year.
Okay. Um, and so now you've been with EXP now. How long have you been with EXP?
3 years, so I'm just going into my fourth year now.
Okay. So and so 2023, how many real estate sides did you sell?
So I'm trying to remember now because I wrote it down yesterday. It was about 36 house sales. So
Okay.
in your terms, the sides is the buyer and the seller, isn't it? So yeah, double that. This year's been exceptionally higher. So yeah, in 2023, I think we found quite a tough year. 2024 has definitely been an improvement, and all predictions is 2025 is going to be a lot busier again.
Okay. And so like let's 2023 selling 38 homes in a traditional estate agent, you might have made around 30,000.
Probably less. No, I would have made a lot less than that. So a
Okay.
traditional agent, you couldn't run a business on 38 homes really. Well, you could just about, but as a high street agent, most of them are looking, yeah, I suppose about 40, 50 homes at least in a year.
Okay.
And
And
there are
then
much bigger.
running it through EXP, how's your income on an let's just say on a net income basis, because I think you were probably paid, your salaries probably didn't have any expenses against it, but on a net income basis, how much better or the same or worse was it at EXP, just maybe percentage wise?
uh, Ultimately, when I'm speaking to agents that are looking at making that jump from being employed to being self-employed, that for doing less, work, less properties, but earning, as we do with the company, I would say they could probably take home or earn 100,000 every year for doing the same job that they're doing in a high street office. For
Okay.
me, it's been a lot bigger. I've been building the business out a lot more. I'm taking, obviously, you take as a director, you're taking a set amount, to keep yourself within a sensible tax threshold, and you're taking dividends and you're taking other benefits. But yeah, I think that the straight difference would be, massively, or as an opportunity to take 100,000 or more out of your business every year.
Okay, so 3 to 4 times the
Oh,
income.
easily.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
2024 has been, and now you run a real estate team as well, right? You're just not just individual producer. You effectively run a mini estate agency. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. That's exactly it now. So we're kind of learning it in the UK, where as we go, it's a different kind of thing. We've got to navigate how we build out without employing staff and bringing them in as self-employed agents. So I run a team at the moment. I've got 7 on board. Not all of them have got up and running. It's still quite new for us. I've got 2 more starting in the new year. But yes, they all come in as a self-employed, but I've had to effectively employ back office staff. So I have people that do the sales progression, people like my colleague Hetty, who's here to do the admin and the taking the phone calls and booking people in for viewings, and kind of just having a training set up in the background as well. So yeah, it is a little bit like running an office. So we're now at that stage where in the UK, whole businesses can convert into being powered by EXP, which is so exciting. But it's getting their mindset as well to change on how, as a bigger company, our buying power for access to, portals and CRM systems and everything else makes it a much more cost-effective way of running your business.
Okay, excellent. And you were a manager before, and then a state agency. Here, you're managing your own personal business, and how is that different? Is that similar, 3 to 4x times better, or is it more?
It's better in that I have got free reign to do things how I would like to do them, or I've not got somebody like an area manager or a director telling me that I've got to hit certain targets, that I've got to, behave a certain way. We find in the UK, estate agency quite often isn't very ethical in the way they handle things, and more focused on volume and getting a bigger market share, and they're not always taking into account the client's best interests. So we very much, and I very much took a different stance on that when I started. That I was here for the client and trying to bring back that kind of professionalism within the industry in the UK, and that's been very popular with the clients. So so it's very different in the way that I've got self-employed agents working for me, so it's trying to get them on board with the same mentality and get them to be doing the same sort of approach to the business, basically.
Now, what does your business look like in terms of how do you go about generating leads? Is it signs in front of homes? Is it a sphere of influence? Is it knocking on doors? Like, is it social media? How do you generate your leads?
So for me, a lot of my business has come from social media, from Facebook mainly. So I set up a Facebook page, business page very early on. We were just post-COVID, so there was a very high demand for properties at the time. And I was posting properties on there before they went onto our major kind of like Rightmoves and Zooplas, the major property portals. But for me, it's been about integrating into my local community, and having not had a high street, shop window as such, Facebook became that shop window. But then that's just one aspect of it. You then have to do leaflet dropping. I get a board up wherever I can, because boards do breed further business for you very easily. And just little advertising, sponsoring local school discos or the local cricket team or something like that. All this sort of like just making yourself known in your local community, basically.
Right. Okay, cool. And then how do you keep, you run a team? How do you run that team? Are you using a particular CRM or are you doing it on spreadsheets? Like, how are you organizing like the leads as they come in, and how do you then connect with your team?
So this is something that we are still navigating a little bit over here. So certainly I'm still learning. We've got a central hub, so we have phone calls coming in to us. We all in the UK XP all are using Loop as our CRM. When buyers phone up to view a property, we're registering them, and our database of buyers is combined throughout the team, so everybody feeds into the same database. We rely a lot on our online portals in this country to get our name out there and to bring people to us. But as leads come in, we're essentially sharing them out to people roughly one based on where they're located. So I'm not in a big town. I'm kind of in an area where there's lots of little market towns all around us. So we tend to have somebody covering each area, but there are no territories. So as long as people are doing the business and showing up essentially, and trying to get the business, they're coming direct into us, and then we feed them out to the team.
Well, awesome. So now, EXP, employed or self-employed agencies are a relatively new concept in the UK. How has the self-employed model, um, how is it changing, I guess, real estate as it's done in the UK?
So when I started 3 years ago, it was quite new then, very new still as a concept. It's definitely, we've gone out there, and as EXP agents, Adam Day and the sort of founding agents, we've been very much pushing the whole personal service, making sure that clients are very happy with the service, and trying to do anything that's different from the regular estate agents out there. And then over the last few years, the mood is shifting. We've kind of proven the model a little bit more, and so now I'm finding that people are reaching out to myself more and more, say, look, what's this all about? How does this work? And starting to believe that they can actually step away from their employed roles. They can go self-employed. They can do very well for themselves and get that work-life balance back, but without losing income or anything like that.
Awesome. Well, Jaine, this has been, a great conversation. If an agent's thinking about self-employed versus employed, what's one or two things that you would recommend they do in order to make that transition?
So with the UK, our transactions are not paid until the house sale completes, and unfortunately in our country, our wonderful system means that most completions from offer to it going through and the money being on the table is normally about an average of 4 to 5 months. So the biggest obstacle those agents have is that 4 or 5 months worth of income. So we generally advise, where possible, people have something behind them. We've got some big name agents in the UK like Mark Buchanan and Chris Abraham, who had part-time jobs when they started. They worked in the evening delivering pizzas, doing whatever it took to keep the money just flowing in while they were building their brand and building their business in the daytime. But I think, with the money aside, I think the main thing is to start integrating in their communities, to start making a name for themselves rather than just hiding behind the name of the company they work for. Is to kind of step out of the shadows a little bit, do video, get involved, and then people will see them go out, in their own name in the local community, and it should make the transition a much easier proposition for them.
Awesome. Well, Jaine, thank you so much for jumping on this first episode, and hopefully, you get a sense of, a little bit of what's going on in the UK. I've got 3 more guests actually from the UK, which I'm going to be interviewing over the next few weeks. And as we learn more about the UK, hopefully we'll even be able to come up with some additional innovative strategies to continue to grow and promote your business there, but also all over the world. So Jaine, thank you so much for being on. And how would somebody reach out to you that's with EXP? What would it be, through Workplace? Would it be through social media?
Yeah. Through Workplace, via my email, which is jane.whitfield@exp.uk.com. LinkedIn, I'm quite prolific on LinkedIn as well, so you should be able to find me on there. I'm pretty much out there at the moment.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jaine. Thanks everyone for listening, and hopefully you enjoyed this first episode of the International Expansion Podcast. And till next time, thanks everyone for listening.